Well, hello again and welcome in. Wherever you are today, wherever you're listening from, I'm so happy to have you over to feast upon God's Word together. Get your plate ready today and take a seat. It's the 44, which is Matthew 4:4. Man cannot live on bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Let's eat. I'm your host, Jed Yancey. And a little late to the party with this news. It's been a little while since it happened. This news that I'm going to share with you today regarding a recent Apple iOS update. And again, it happened a few months ago. I was actually talking to one of my brother-in-laws about this a few months ago. And then here recently, it popped back up on my phone, and was doing some reading about all these warnings all over the country that police departments have sent out regarding this new update on the iPhone, and it being a little bit dangerous. And really, the whole idea that after this update, should you choose to go through with it on your iPhone, that one of the features that's defaulted to being on is a new feature called Name Drop. Now, maybe you've heard of, if you have an iPhone, AirDrop, the ability to send information to someone else's device rather quickly, right? AirDrop. So I just send it over to them. Well, this is Name Drop. So maybe you've heard of this Name Drop. Now, the idea behind it is kind of cool, honestly. It makes sharing contact information or your name very easy. So basically, what happens in a name drop is that it allows you to share contact information by just bringing two phones close together. I take my phone, you take your phone, you put them together, and a contact card shows up. So you can receive their information, they get yours, all the things, name, phone number, address, anything you want to share. I mean, I hope you get that. So you may be asking, all right, well, what's the big deal? Why the warnings from police departments? Why is it all over the news? Where does that come into play? Well, the real problem is, again, after this update, this feature, Name Drop, is automatically defaulted to the on position. You might want to check your settings. And so, really the problem here is that, as I'm walking around and I've got my phone, that technically someone could walk up, put their phone next to mine, or stand in close proximity to me, and they've got the ability to potentially have my contact information, where I live, my birth date, whatever else I would typically share with anyone else. Now, the scary part here is when it comes to kids, the millions of kids in our country that have cell phones, right? And now you can start to see why it's scary, why all the warnings and why it was in the news. So outside of all of this, like, that's just where my thinking on this even began, because it really started to get me thinking as a Christian, like, as I am within close proximity to people, like, let's just say this feature was real life. Like, I walk up next to you and I'm in close proximity to you. What would show up? What's being airdropped or what's being name dropped? What kind of vibe am I giving off to you? And so here's the question of today. Would it show up in you that I'm a Christian? As I get in close proximity to you, what do you know about me? What name pops up on the screen? And then the same the other way around. How about you and on over to me? You see, you move over close to me, and without saying anything, it shows up on my screen that you are blank. What is that? I mean, we know that this would never be the case for that to happen, but there is some reality to what I'm talking about. And so let me ask you, like, as you get close to other people, would they have any idea at all that you're a Christian? And if so, how? And if not, why? I mean, some of you listening right now, like I hate to say this and start here, but I think this needs to be said, especially by me. Some of you that are listening, you've been there in some of my moments where you would say, "Yeah, man, that Jed dude, like I've been in close proximity to him, and there's no way that in that moment I would say that he's a Christian." And if he is, well, that's kind of surprising because I remember the one time I was around him and he blank, or I remember that time he blank. I mean, that's the case with a lot of us, right? I mean, I will be the first to raise my hand and admit that I've felt, key word there is felt, past tense, felt great shame over things that I've done in the company of others. And there's just no way that someone saw me do that thing and thought anything good about me, about my character, who I am, or the God that I serve. And I hope I'm not the only one in that. But I started to think like nowadays, like, yeah, I mean, we've all had our moments, but what about now? That's what's really important. As I get up close to people, what is it that they see in me? Am I just like everyone else? What name pops up in their head? Is it Christian? I think most especially, about being a dad with three beautiful children living in my house. I mean, all day, every day, on the daily, they are within name drop distance of me. What do they see? What's being name dropped in their mind as they watch the life I live and what I do and how I behave and what I say and how I say it. I spoke a couple weeks ago in one of our episodes and referenced Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And really, we talked about chapter 6, right? But do you recall where Jesus' Sermon on the Mount even begins? Matthew chapter 5. Jesus speaking to this crowd of people. They've been following him. He goes up on a mountain, he sits down, and he opens his mouth. And right after he opens his mouth, one of the first things he talks about is a whole bunch of blessed are thoses. And then he says this, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Listen to this, and will be our focus in verse 16 of Matthew 5. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Now, I think with stuff like this, there is no doubt in my mind, you guys listening today, you've heard this passage so much. And I think sometimes we can hear stuff so much that it goes in one ear and out the other without us truly understanding the meaning of what Jesus is saying here. Like, do we even understand the reason why we should let our light shine? Check this out again, because honestly, I think a lot of us are used to reading the Bible and taking from it all the do this, don't do that, and kind of read it as a list of do's and don'ts. And while that's good enough for me and should be good enough for us to do it anyways, especially here, seeing as how it's coming from Jesus, this is really kind of a cool verse, really awesome verse, because this isn't just a do this. This is a do this so that, and as a result. There's a lot packed into this verse that I think sometimes we overlook. So here it is. Do this. Let your light shine before men so that they see it. And as a result, they too will glorify your Father who is in heaven. How cool is that? Like, as two devices are brought together, one is you and one is me. What is it that's being airdropped or name dropped to you? And whatever that is, it's going to result in something. What will that be? Now, on the flip side of considering this, do this so that, and as a result, from your own perspective and thinking about the way you walk and talk and live and act and all the things, the other part of this is that flip side. As I come up next to someone else, And what is name dropped is not anything that's going to lead me to a point of glorifying God through that. Well, what now? As I see, it's not good. And that's the vibe you're giving off to me. What is my responsibility? What do I need to do? And I think we get some words from Paul about that in Ephesians. Check this out in Ephesians chapter 5. The first 5 verses, I would say, is a pretty good partner passage with what we read in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And so Paul says here in Ephesians chapter 5, be imitators of God, walk in love, just like Christ loves you. Shine your light. Don't take part in immorality, impurity, greed. Get this. Don't let those even be name dropped among you. Same with filthiness, silly talk, vulgarity, coarse jesting. These are not fitting, he says. And so now our question is, all right, well, why not? Well, as a result of those, amongst other things, that name that pops up isn't going to have anything to do with the kingdom of Christ and God. Look at the next part, though. Because if some of that stuff is what is being name dropped to you as you get close to people, Paul says this beginning in verse 6, let no one deceive you with empty words. For because of these things, the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Paul's saying, listen, the name that will show up on your screen is son of disobedience. And here's what you should do. Please don't be partakers with them. Why? Well, once upon a time, yeah, that was you, right? You did some of that. You were that way. You were formerly darkness, he says. But now you're light. You're light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. He goes on to say that the fruit of the light and walking that way consists not of those things, but of goodness and righteousness and truth. Even more than that, he goes on to say in verse 15 and 16, as he says, therefore be careful how you walk, not as unwise men, but as wise, making the most of your time because the days are evil. So then don't be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. You see how much more there is to what Jesus began there in his Sermon on the Mount that sometimes we just gloss over because it's like, yeah, I got that. Like I'm supposed to be salt, I'm supposed to be light. But this is major. Yes, be salt. Yes, be light. So that yes, people see, and that yes, as a result, people say, yeah, you know what? There's something different about you, and I kind of like it. And more importantly, the result of paying careful attention to how we walk and how we shine will result in one more soul recognizing and glorifying God. Your 44 today is to shine. Shine right, shine bright through the way you live your life. Let the Lord's name be name dropped to each and every person you come in contact with. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you next Friday.